Old Man's Journey, a soul-searching adventure, tells a story of life, loss, and hope. Entranced in a beautifully sun-kissed and handcrafted world, embark on a heartfelt journey interwoven with light-hearted and pressure-free puzzle solving. A peaceful narrative about life's precious moments, broken dreams, and changed plans. Uncover stories of the old man's life told through beautiful vignettes of his memories. Interact with the serene, whimsical environment as you solve playful puzzles and shape the landscape around you, growing the hills to create the old man's path forward. Find yourself transported to a vibrant and delightful world as you immerse yourself in a nostalgic journey and explore the complexity of heartache, regret, and hope through the old man's eye. Art is a diverse range of human activities involving creative imagination to express technical proficiency, beauty, emotional power, or conceptual ideas. The nature of art and related concepts such as creativity and interpretation are explored in a branch of philosophy known as aesthetic. The concept of video game as a form of art is a commonly debated topic within the entertainment industry, but for me personally, video game is a form of art. As a former indie game developer, I've experienced the meaning of creating something based on my emotional power, by the beauty of it, and conceptual ideas. Video games in itself contain tons of artistic elements in their traditional forms such as graphic art, music, and story. Art, in its broadest sense, is a form of communication. It means whatever the artist intends it to mean, and this meaning is shaped by the materials, techniques, and forms it makes use of, as well as the ideas and feelings it creates in its viewers. Art is an act of expressing feelings, thoughts, and observations. Art and meaning is not far off with video games. They always walk side by side. Meaning can vary from the objective of the story and their conclusion or any form of question. Sometimes video games give the player freedom on how to achieve such a thing, and that also correlates to meaning and perspective in viewing an art piece. I talk about how video games contain traditional artistic elements, and one of them being story and narrative. A narrative is a way of presenting connected events in order to tell a good story. You can write a narrative based on a story, or you can tell them. Oral storytelling is telling a story through voice and gestures. The oral tradition can take many forms, including epic poems, chants, rhymes, songs, and more. You can tell or write such a narrative with their own types. A linear narrative presents the events of the story in the order in which they actually happen. A non-linear narrative presents the events of the story out of order, employing flashbacks to shape the chronology of a story. A quest narrative is a story in which the protagonist walks tirelessly toward a goal. The pursuit of this goal likely becomes their all-consuming passion, and they must face seemingly insurmountable obstacles along the way. Viewpoint narrative is designed to express the points of view or subjective personal experience of the main character or other fictional character in the story. So, which type of narrative does the game use? Of course, the non-linear narrative. At the start of the game, you see an old man gazing through an open ocean, and suddenly, out of nowhere, there's a delivery man handing him a piece of mail. The old man reads it, and suddenly he goes back inside and prepares himself to go somewhere. From this point on, I'm going to talk about the story and in-depth look into some topics that might be ruin your experience in this game. So go ahead, buy it, play it. It's available on PC and mobile. The old man takes on a journey after reading the mail. The mail has been sent by his daughter. Throughout the journey, he constantly faced with what we assume as a series of reminiscences of all times. We are going to talk about reminiscence later. The story reveals itself with a series of flashbacks with beautifully handcrafted art. If you don't realize it this far, the game doesn't have any spoken dialogues. At the end of the game, the man goes inside a building. The game ended with the old man and his daughter cruising through the ocean. Narratives and stories in this game are built and supported with beautifully composed soundtracks. Now, I'm going to talk about the going home scenario in storytelling. This kind of storytelling has been used a long time ago. Through 675 to 725 BCE, a story was written. It's called the Odyssey, written by Homer. The poem was intended for oral performances. This kind of poem is known as epic. It's a long narrative poem in an elevated style that deals with the trials and achievements of a great hero or heroes. Increasingly, scholars distinguish between two types of epic, the first one being the primary epic, legend, or folk tales of a people and is initially developed in an oral tradition of storytelling. Secondary epic, on the other hand, are literary. They are written from their inception and designed to appear as whole stories. The hero is long-suffering Odysseus, king of Ithaca and surrounding islands and hero of the Trojan War. He has been gone 20 years from his homeland, his wife Penelope, and his son. Looking or hearing that section of the story, we know that there is a relationship and patterns to the so-called going home stories. First, there's an objective. Second, there's a journey. Third, there's trials. Fourth, there's metaphors. This has been the device for most of the literature and poems nowadays. First, we already talked about the objective. In fact, it is presented at the start of the story. The journey then suddenly appears after the objective was given. Trials in this case can be anything in terms of video games. It can be the puzzle or bumps in the story that the main character experiences. Metaphors are scattered and told through form of art, which is the drawing and animation. Reminiscence is the act of recollecting past experience or events. An example of the typical use of reminiscence is when people share their personal stories with others of family, friends, and acquaintances while gaining an authentic, meaningful relationship with the people. Reminiscing is a commonplace and normal activity. It is something that we all do frequently. Everyone has stories to tell about their past experiences. Peter Laslett, 1989, an academic and social historian writing when he was in his 60s, suggests that the period of retirement from paid work to death can for most people be divided into two distinct phases. Before delving into the phases, I'm going to define what aging is. It is useful to think in terms of a life course. Each stage in life is seen as a part of transitional process and not as a distinct period. Aging is a normal biological process which can be said to start at birth and goes on throughout the rest of life. It is not something that happens on a certain birthday, and it is important to remember that the process does not speed up. Nevertheless, individuals do age at different rates, and some age faster than others. There's tons of reasons, but one of them is that it may be genetic. For example, people with parents who have lived to a great age might inherit their longevity genes. More often, the speed of aging and the levels of physical and mental fitness are determined by factors in an individual's lifestyle and in their present and previous environment. With all of that, let's talk about the phases. The concepts of 3 ages of man: childhood, adulthood, old age, and very old age. The third age is that of retirement from employment and from the responsibilities of dependent children. Lastly, suggests that this should be a time of personal fulfillment. The fourth age is the time of physical degeneration, ending in death, and it is from the fourth age that we get our negative images of old people as dependent, crumbling, and decrepit. For many very old people, their security and confidence revolve around a relatively small number of supports and services. Any withdrawal or disruptions of this can lead to confusion, depressions, and an inability to cope. People depend on a range of organizations, services, and individuals, as diverse as public utilities, local pubs, neighbors, and milkmen. In the game, we know that the old man is not always alone. He's close to a small pub. Not only that, often the mailman comes and delivers his mail, so there's still social interactions. A human existence is composed of all choices of action made up from moment to moment. People of whatever age who are in touch with their own feelings and with reality are the successful jugglers. They will tolerate, cope, and even grow when faced with pain, uncertainty, anxiety, and loss. The statement is true, and the game is trying to compose and put that to the test. In a sequence where the old man is falling down and drowning, he continues his journey underwater. And at the end of the sequence, there's a locked catch. The catch is unlocked, and it reveals another piece of the story, where he sees himself in the past coming back from his journey to find out that his house is gone and so his family. Metaphorically, this is the part of the story that the old man doesn't want to remember. It builds up with this dramatic sequence and it works. People who have had mental health problems in their earlier life might well bring those problems with them into their very old age. The social isolation experienced by some old people can, and often does, lead to depressions and to a diminished ability to communicate and be sociable. This self-destructive sadness is particularly poignant in these old people whose security has depended solely and rigidly on the routine and objects of daily living, rather than the integrations of experience. Lazarus' research, 1972, showed that encouraging patients to talk about the old days helped them to live the present and renew pride in the past achievements. What we see and what we play is a life history book that was told to us by this old man through his image. Coleman's research showed that not all old people want to reminiscence. For some, the past is too painful to be recalled. For others, it may no longer seem significant to their present-day lives and concerns. Loss is a pervasive part of extreme old age. Very old people will have faced many losses: spouses, partner, friends, neighbors, their lives at work, their independence, and maybe even their home. In order to cope, they will need to have grieved properly and completely in order to come to terms with their losses and integrate the effects into their lives. So we all know that remembering past events and reviewing certain aspects of life is healthy and common to do at any age. As part of the human cycle, older adults especially needs to integrate their lifetime experience and tie up loose ends. The heartwarming, joyous memories from the past contribute to the daily contentment. Remembering the way difficult times were faced in the past helps people better face difficult times today. So here we are at the end of the video. It's been a pleasure making this kind of writing and turning it into a video. All the sources of this writing comes from this book, so check them out on the link in the description.